Welcome, Mr. Not Mr. Let's call you Dr. Joe Delaney. Let's give you your proper title. So wonderful to have you on the Jill Butler Experience. Your resume is long and wide. I'd like you to actually tell us a little bit about yourself and your background and what brought you to today.
Jill, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be on your show. I've got no
Thank
idea,
you.
I work in this extemporaneousness, which is a posh word. That means without a script, really. So just put me
Mhm.
bum on the seat, open my mouth up and see what comes out, without swearing too much if I can help it, But my name's Dr. Joe Delaney. I'm not a doctor of medicine, but I'm a doctor in medicine. And just to qualify what that means is, it means that I've got a PhD in medicine. And I did a lot of research, 7 years research into the mind-body connection, basically. And the first half of my life, I was something called a biomedical scientist. And I went around different fields in pathology, it's called in the UK. And so I'm sort of specialized in hematology, biochemistry, histopathology, medical microbiology, all these things, because it was basically a multidisciplinary, very left-brained scientific approach to life. And that basically
Mhm.
what got me into trouble, really, because I was just blocked in one half of me head, really. So I was a left brainer, I was a scientist. I couldn't really listen to anything else that was outside the box of my understanding until things started to go wrong, or maybe they went a bit right, actually. Because what happened to me is, as I sort of progressed up the ladder of success, if you like, the stress got more and more intense, the anxiety got more and more intense, and so did the depression as well. So stress, anxiety, and depression. And I found, Jill, that if I had a few drinks of alcohol, right, it normalized me and I could get on with my job, right? But as the stress
Yes.
increased, right, and the job intensity increased, I was still able, in fact, I was still progressing quite rapidly in that field, right? But the drinking really took hold of me. And then the drinking got hold of me. And at the end of that, really, at the end of about 15 years, I lost absolutely everything. I lost that job. I lost my wife and kids. I lost my independence. I was locked up. I lost my driving license and I lost my home. And I ended up homeless, sleeping on a park bench in the local park, right? And so now I know now at the time it was like hell going through all that because the people around me kept saying to me, Joe, you're so clever, right? You've got all these qualifications. Why can't you shake yourself out of this? And Jill, I didn't know because I used to think to myself, there must be something. What's the matter with me? Because I really intend to do well, not to harm anybody or hurt anybody, including myself. And yet it's all falling apart. And I know today, Jill, that that was part of something that I chose for myself even before I came here. And I'm not
Yeah.
into like sort of really weird and wonderful stuff, but something in me settled down with this understanding now that there's deeper levels of, if you like, intelligence in me that drive me from the depth now. And that's what I'm going with now. And I call it an open heart or a light-hearted approach. Anyway, to wrap this up quickly and give you a go, right? At the end of that, I tried to take my own life on several occasions, really seriously. And on the third attempt, right, I was met by this peace that passeth all understanding, and it felt as though I was going. And as I was going, I can remember I was kneeling down at the time, right? And I'm saying to the universe, because I'd fallen out with God and all these sort of things, I said, look, God, if you can hear me, please let this be the end of it now because I'm hurting myself. I'm hurting all the people that I love around me, right? Can you just let this be? See, I'm getting all emotional talking about it now. This is what happens. But I said, just please let me go, right? And what happened was I started to have massive alcoholic epileptic fits, right? And I thought, oh my God, I can't live properly. I can't die properly. What's it all
Right.
about? And then this peace
Right.
that passeth all understanding descended upon me. And Jill, I don't know what the time was. It felt like a long time, but it was probably a split second. I understood everything about everything, right? You know,
Wow.
and then
Wow.
I
So it was
got,
like it was an out of body experience that you had. Like you literally went to the depths, to the lowest depths, the dark night of the soul. And in order to come back up, you had to go to the very bottom and then you had a breakthrough.
Absolutely. And some people call that a rock bottom, but I see it now as a ceiling. It's a ceiling. It's the other way around.
Yeah,
It's almost like a
yeah.
drill into the next dimension of understanding. And so in that whole process, see, I've got a thing going up my spine here. This is what happens to me is when I get this, it's like, go on, son, you're doing a good job. Carry on. So
Yeah,
what
it's all
I got
speaking to
this,
you.
I got the sort of impression that I turned round, kicked up the bottom, and it was almost like it wasn't a voice as such, but it was a really powerful flow of thought. Son, if you can't take a joke, you shouldn't have signed up for it. And I thought, oh, very funny, you know. And what we're going to do now is we're going to guide you now to that piece, but you've got to do it step by step, and you've got to do it naturally and clean. And that's important to me now, naturally and clean. And so basically over 32 years now, it's 32 years since I've had a drink of alcohol or any other mind-altering substance. I've done it cleanly. It hasn't been easy, right? But it's been worthwhile. And what they said to me was, and I don't know exactly who it is who's talking to me, but I get a really strong impression when the information comes through. And they basically said, people will be watching you coming out of this. Just guide them like we're guiding you. And that's where I'm up to, Jill. I really
Oh.
don't know what's going on from one moment to the next until the information comes in. I don't know whether that makes sense at all.
Oh yeah, yeah. So it feels to me that you have been allowing yourself to be guided by not only your higher self, but the universe, the creator itself, has been guiding you through this period of time to just be in flow state. And so everything you're doing now that you've surrendered your heart to all that is. So to me, what it sounds like is that you've come from your head, your mind, and you've gone down, and we were talking about this before we came on. You've learned to go to the brain heart coherence place. So you've left the brain and gone into the heart space, and you still use the brain, but the brain as a tool, not as the guiding force. And I think what we're coming into now on the planet is we're coming into that left brain, right brain, of course, where everything's spoken about in dualities. And so that's how we'll speak about it for the lack of better understanding, is to express it in those terms. We're merging both that left and right brain. And so you were coming from a left brain, but you weren't feeling in balance. And you had the best world in the left brain that you could have created in that left brain. But the thing that you were missing was that balance of the left and the right brain, meaning the heart and the mind. And so I'd like to get your take, your understanding, your views, your wisdom on what that feels like to go into that heart space and maybe guide and express what you tell others on this, because this is a really, really important understanding for the planet right now.
It is really. I think when there's accentuated antagonism between the left and the right hemispheres, it produces emotional disturbance. It's really that simple, because if they
Right,
work together like yin and yang and masculine and feminine, then
right,
everything's like a divine union, as you call it, a merger, basically. Right.
right,
But we've
right,
got to come out of that, because some people say practice the opposites. To me, it's not that simple, because I think that you can be jumping from one hemisphere to the next, and the scales of balance are always wobbling like that. I think what we have to do
right,
is we have to come completely out of the scales into a different place. And then what happens is automatically, based upon our innate intelligence, the scales balance out themselves. And it's different for individual souls, because it's really all to do with different frequencies and what they call the esoteric chakras, which is also aligned
right,
with the autonomic nervous system. So there's an east is east and west is west, and
right,
maybe the twain need to meet. And the way we do that is by surrendering, if you like, to the heart. But it's very difficult in a Western world, because we're told to develop the ego, we're told to develop a knowledge base. In actual fact, what I learned was I had to let go of all ideas, all emotions, all attitudes, everything that had formed my life up to that point. I had to let go of totally and allow new stuff to come in. So like you said before, is what happens to me is I get the information and it comes upwards, right? And then it goes into me head, and then I take the action. what used to happen before was it used to come into me head. I used to push any emotion downwards, and I'd just get on with what I felt that was the correct thing to do, which is generally upside down and back to front.
It's true. It's true. So would you say there's a lot of different ways to put it, but I feel like when you get into a space more of living in your heart, you're more in a space of divine neutrality. So you're more in the space of non-judgment to anything and seeing the love and beauty and God and creation in all things. And when you start to tap into that and feel that on a regular basis, you're making that shift.
Absolutely. I think because this thing up here, right, this bipolarity or this duality can't not judge. That's its job, basically. You know, I mean, I don't believe in getting shut of the ego. I think the ego, when it's balanced, is there to do a job. It's to look after us, keep us quite safe, you know. But I think there's such an imbalance that goes on. Like I explained before, it's sometimes called accentuated antagonism. And if there's antagonism here in the hemispheres, there's an antagonism at the heart level as well. And it literally closes down the heart from the information that needs to be coming up and be expressed. So what happens is when these are in imbalance, the heart closes and goes on the defensive. And when we're on the defensive, we become very, posh word coming up, egocentric, meaning that we're just so we're in this fight and flight all the time. And if you look around you at the world, most people are on fast forward now, on the defensive, becoming ruder, becoming faster, becoming less sensitive and stuff like that. You know, that's not a judgment. That's a statement of fact and that's actually going on because of this imbalance, both in our hemispheres, in our hearts, and the way that it impacts upon the nervous system. And my job is really to help people, not to tell them what to do, other than share my experience, what's happened to me, my strength, and my hope that if they practice with the same tools that I use, then miracles can happen for them too. So it's not about being a counselor or a guide or an advisor. It's really to say what you're really looking for is already within you. This is how you get in touch with it. You put your hand on your heart like that and you go, hello? Is there anybody in there? Right. More or less, it's that simple. And you basically, most people have got to be in a desperate situation before they'll even try that.
Yeah. What would you say? I mean, I have some of my own tools of quieting myself or quieting that mind. What are some of the things that you do and you use your tools that keep you kind of always in that space where you know, obviously we all waver and we all go back and forth and we, you know, it's like that. But what kind of tools do you use, Joe?
Well, the first thing is I've become much more aware of my body and the signals that my body's sending me, because I was so head oriented. I'd lost touch with my body, really. My throat had almost closed my head off from my body. So that would be the first thing, is to reconnect with the body and its feelings and stuff like that. But how do we do it? The Buddha, or Buddha, as you might say in the States, he was supposed to have said, his follower, you know, his main man, said to him, Bud, is there any shortcut to peace of mind? And the Buddha is reputed to have said, yeah, one thing, become aware of your breathing. End of story. Because if you work it out, the breathing, what happens is in a perception of threat, we close our throat, we go into rapid, shallow breathing, our muscles tense, right? So if we can become aware of our throat, our jaw, our chin, our tongue, all that area, if it's tense, because especially the teeth, right? If it's tense, we need to find a way, is not to take any action, which will basically be a reaction, but is to, rather than go forward, it's to step back. And that's what mindfulness is. Mindfulness is to give you enough space to have the second thought before you kick off on the first thought. So become aware of your breathing. And there's a lot of stuff. There's an organization in America called Heart Math, right? And I would, anybody listening to this, they have a booklet. It's free. You can download it free. And it's called The Science of the Heart. And that's basically what my PhD was about as well, because Heart Math and me started off at about the same time, just in different places. It seems to happen like that, really. And, you know, I've sort of slightly collaborated with heart math over time. And I would suggest to anybody is that they've got such a lot of information now. They've got spiritual information and they've got scientific information. Whatever you feel inclined towards, do yourself a favor and go and download the PDFs and have a look and see what you feel. So I would say, just to come back, I don't have to go on, Jill, you'll have to butt in, you know, but I think breathing and using positive emotion, that changes the way that your nervous system works. It takes you more into what's called a parasympathetic response and back into the rest and digest. And so that's what the balance is. And in order to do that, if you focus on your heart and you imagine that you're breathing this positive emotion in and out of your heart, then the head eventually starts to cool down. Your brain waves change from beta to alpha theta, and you get more space in your head. And it's almost like inspiration comes in and it goes boink. And when you say to yourself, oh, I never even thought of that, that's when it's working for you.
Yeah. It's that whole process. When you talk about the heart coherence, one of the people that I learned it first from was back in probably 2010, Drumvalo Melchizedek.
Oh yeah.
Used to do classes. He doesn't anymore. He's kind of like away from the limelight, but he used to do a lot with brain and heart coherence and the heart math stuff. So I learned quite a bit back then in regards to that path that you're talking about. But what I think is really interesting and what I love about your speaking and what you're doing right now is you came from more of a left brain kind of, you know, teaching, and now you're more in the right in the sense of trying to teach both. And I think it's really wonderful what you're doing, because especially and I don't like to get into the masculine and feminine so much to speak, but truly speaking honestly is a lot of the masculine works from that science, and now they're starting to want to walk into that heart, and there's not, and maybe they don't know where to find that. So it's good that we're having these conversations and you're going on different platforms and you're speaking about this, because as you said, the heart math speaks to both the science and the spirituality, which I believe truly are merging in this time frame, and they're going to even be merging more over the next 10, 15, 20 years.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I think in this time of what's called the Great Shift, you know, Jill, in 2011, you know, I got this, you know, you wake up and you've got this whole load of thought coming in. And it was like telling me, you need to go now and tell people about the Great Shift. And I have to say, what's the Great Shift? I've never heard of it, you know. And they say, we're going to send you information now. You need to go and tell people what's happening. Well, right. So
wow.
in the next sort of 9 months, all this information started to pile in. And it's, you know, when you get stuff in and you sort of know it anyway, right? Well, that's what was happening to me. It was coming in and I thought, I sort of know this. And, you know, I get this thing. Yeah, I know that. Now you've got to go out now and try and explain to people what's happening. And the way I do that now is I talk a lot of yoga stuff now and how they talk about the planets changing and cycles of change and stuff like that, you know. And then I brought in the Mayans. I'd never heard of the Mayans before, you know, all this stuff. And within 9 months, I was traveling across the world, right, talking about the great shift of consciousness and what's going to be happening in people's thoughts and how they felt. And that's what really is happening. As you know, right, there's been loads and loads of solar impulses coming, especially over the last week. And that to me is this influx of new consciousness. It's hard to get our head around how consciousness and light intensity and the sun are all connected. But from my point of view, and please don't believe a single word I say unless it feels right for you. That's what I say to people, right? But where I'm up to with feeling, right, is it's all connected. There's an intensity of light, there's an intensity of frequency, but consciousness is changing now to become more conscientious. I feel like a preacher now, I'm just going on with it. But that's where I'm up. That's where I'm up to with stuff. And how do you know that you're being changed? Because we're not doing the changing. We need to get out of the way to be changed. So this new understanding's coming in, whether we like it or not. And if you're really finding it difficult, it's because some part of us is resisting and not willing to let go of the old stuff. And that's what pain is. Pain is resistance to the flow of this unconditional love that's trying to permeate every single cell of our bodies, really.
Yes, 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 yes. And I sort of see it. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Linda Good McGillis, but she's been on my podcast many times, and she's kind of like an oracle. I I tease her and call her that. She doesn't like to be called that, but she's always at the forefront of knowing what's coming, and she's very tapped in and very evolved. And we always talk about what's happening, and the way that she describes it, and I agree with her, is like it's like a house of mirrors, and the mirrors are like coming in on us because we're having to see and deal with all of our versions of ourselves and all the things that we stuffed down and that we didn't want to deal with, and all the emotions, all the pain bodies, and all the different versions of ourselves, all incarnate versions, are coming together now and becoming one. And that's a thing that's very a little bit struggling for a lot of humanity, because they're having aches and pains and diseases and things coming up because all of a sudden everything is bubbling up to the top, and now they're suddenly having to see and witness. And just let it. I always let people know, just let it flow, just let it come up, just honor it, don't try to hold on to it, just feel it, do whatever it tells you to do, and then let it go. And that's what's kind of happening right now. And I've even myself, I had a couple of days ago, this week, I had like a lot of like brain fog and sort of like this amnesia feeling. And I know that a lot of people are going through that, where because you're releasing so much of like what doesn't, what's not needed anymore. And so you just have to get out of the way, like you said.
No, I couldn't agree more. And yeah, I have those as well. I'm used to them now. I can sort of feel them coming in. And sometimes I have to, because I do quite a lot of university stuff, and I have to take myself away and sort of give myself permission to rest for an hour or something like that as it clears, really. But yeah, and sometimes I'm walking along and I get like it feels like a big wave has turned me to the left and stuff, so I'm quite okay with this now. What's actually happening in the UK is now they're trying to peddle a medication now for early onset dementia now, because they're suggesting that people it makes me laugh, honestly, right? They're suggesting that these may be the symptoms of early onset dementia, and please take one of these tablets. Yeah, honest to God, honestly. And I laugh now because I laugh, and I'm not going to get into all the controversy of should I have that. Blah, blah, blah. People have to make different choices. But my feeling is to say to people, if you're stuck and you don't know, you're between a rock and a hard place, that's because your left and your right brain is feeding in all information from different angles, right? Just take all of it in one big package, put it in your hand like that, shove it in your heart of hearts, and then do that breathing, and then almost like say to your heart of hearts, I don't know what to do here. Can you please send me some inspiration when you've got time, right? And when you're not too busy, like helping everybody else, can you send me some inspiration or guidance, because I honestly do not know what to do. And then leave it. Some people get an answer there and then, or they might get it half an hour later or the next day or something, where the sign comes up, turn left, right? And then you go down the road and another sign says turn left. And then you meet a friend, and the friend says, I've got no idea when I'm going to say this, but I think you should turn left at the bottom of the road. They're the clues, aren't they? The synchronous coincidences or whatever. So I don't know what I'm going on.
That's it. That's the breadcrumbs. That's your higher self, soul, whatever you want to call it, whatever word you want to use, guiding you to the next place that you need to go. And I think once you're kind of using that heart as the map, you're following that, and then you're always in the right place. You're always getting the information and what needs to be next for yourself.
I couldn't agree more. And different people have different ways to tap into their intuition. And how can you tell? This is my view. How can I tell that it's intuition that's guiding me because my heart's open, it's flowing. I feel enthusiastic and I feel joyful, right? How can I
Yes,
tell? How can I
joyful.
tell when it's not the right answer? Because I feel anxious, nervous, irritable, discontented, and tense, right? And so, it's discernment. Obviously there's going to be some red herrings that get chucked in just to see if you're paying attention, But if you make a mistake and maybe somebody gets hurt, you can go along and say, look, I'm awfully sorry. I was completely offline there. I apologize. I hope you forgive me. And if they say F off and never darken our door again, right? It doesn't matter because at least you've apologized and then they've got to look
Right,
at their reaction to it. You see what I mean? We don't have to go
right,
running around, oh, please forgive me. We have to say, I've discovered this. I made a mistake. I apologize for it. I hope you forgive me. So most people say, yeah, no problem. We could see you were tired. Some people tell you to get stuffed and never come back again. It doesn't matter what the answer is, as long as you're willing to honestly apologize for any mistakes that you make. And
yeah,
that's not
and
just
that goes.
now. Sorry, Jill, that's not just now. That's about in the past. Every single thing that we did in the past. You can almost like go out now and neutralize it by saying, if you've hurt a person in the past, if you can say a direct amend to them, that neutralizes it. And then that floats away then to the next bit to come in.
Right, right, right. And it goes a lot with your intention. So when your intention is pure and your intention is to be in that heart and be as kind and loving as you can be, and that's what your intention always is. Even if you make a mistake, like you said, and you put it out there and you express, that you didn't maybe say that the right way, or it didn't, you might have offended or hurt somebody. It's that intention that counts. Because it's, when you're not intentional and you do things and then you make mistakes, you're going to learn by them, but it's that intentionality that I think is that keeps us on the right track. And gratitude too, because you were talking about being in joy, and you can always feel like you're in that flow state when you're in that joy and you're happy and there's no tenseness. And that's what that is. It's like that gratitude for every single moment and everything that's going on around you, even if it's not the most ideal situation or the best situation. It is, there's always something wonderful or beautiful about it.
I agree entirely. And I think what's helped me more than anything else is to wake up with no idea what's going on whatsoever. Right. Just wake up with a blank sheet. And what I do in the morning is I put my hand on my heart. It's like a tap on there like that. And I go, hello, anybody in there? Right. What's on the cards today? And sometimes I get a feeling. And then I'll do my to-do list with my heart open, because it's almost like it manages my energy for the day, really. And so
That's beautiful. I love that, Joe. I love that.
well, before, when my head was battered, I used to think, oh, I've got to do that, got to pay this, got to do this, got to do that, got to do this, that, and the other. At the end of the day, nothing of those things got done, So if I allow my heart or my innate intelligence to write the to-do list, I've got a better chance of success, really.
So you actually wake up in the morning and you put your hand on your heart and
Yeah.
you actually say, heart, guide me. Tell me what you want.
Yeah. And what I do was, I'm not a religious person. I sort of put aside religion because it wasn't working for me. But when I got my help from Alcoholics Anonymous, that's what helped me to get the drink down and to understand what mindful meditation was. That to me is how AA's helped me. And in that process, they do get you to do a couple of prayers, right? And the prayer I say every morning is, I'm going to say it now, if that's okay. I'm not, as I say, I'm not religious, but this is what helped me. It's God, right? And that's good to me. God is good. It's just another O stuck in it. So God, I offer myself to thee to do with me. Just let me come round to this again. God, I offer myself to thee to build with me and do with me as thou wilt. Relieve me of the bondage of self, that I may better do your will. Take away my difficulties, that victory over them may bear witness to those I would help of thy power, thy love, and thy way of life. May I do thy will always. And that's the prayer I say on waking every morning. And I've done that for 32.5 years. And my life has been transformed. Now, whether that's Jesus helping me, or Metatron, or Sandalphon, or the Pleiadians, or the Arcturians, or the Andalusians, it doesn't matter to me. I just haven't got a picture anymore, you know. And I've worked with the Kabbalah, you know, for many, many years, right? And I've done all that sort of business just to show what different people across the planet use to contact their innate intelligence. And to me, I've dumped all the labels and dumped all the pictures. It's a feeling, Jill, with me now, because I think if I try and put a label on it, it takes me back into my head and it blocks off what really I should be feeling.
Oh, I agree with you so much. So using all the boxes is because I've had people ask me over the years, are you this? Are you that? Are you a Buddhist? Are you a Hindu? Are you this? Are you that? And I always tell them I'm everything. I'm all the things. I believe in everything. I give my love and appreciation and honor to all the things, all the religions, all the ideas, all the concepts. I feel all of them on some levels, and they all assist me. And I agree with you. Like the more boxes you have, it's like the more stuff you have in your closet. Like it doesn't serve you.
No.
It really doesn't. The idea of the concept of love that's streamed through all of them, that's something that doesn't have to have any box. It's a feeling and an emotion and purity.
I
Right?
agree. I couldn't agree more. And the thing that's come for me for years is the number 12, right? And I said, what does this mean? And I got, well, Joe, you're the 13, you're the 13. And I said, okay, what's this mean, 13? Well, that represents the heart. If you like, if you're a Christian, you could call that the Christ. And there's 12 disciples, Joe. The disciples are representative of the 12 potentials of all human beings. I go, this sounds like a good story. What's the next line? Well, Joe, because you're a neuroscientist, right, it's connected to your 12 cranial nerves as well. Oh, that's interesting, right? So the 12 disciples, or skills, or disciplines, or potentials, or possibilities are associated with the nervous system, right? But these 12 potentials are actually the neurological locations in your brain. There's 6 on one side and 6 on the other. And I'm going, this is great. So that's where I'm up to. So I've looked up the 12 nerves. They all have different things. Most of them are to do with changing facial expressions, right? It's amazing this, really, because sometimes if you're frowning, you can actually obstruct the energy that's trying to get in. So if you can open your heart and allow this radiating lightheartedness, what does it? It almost like opens all these up. And then the heart, which is the Christ, which is the master. So this is, to me, this whole purpose of life for all human beings is to access their full potential through an open and flowing heart, right?
Yes,
And then,
yes,
rather than the disciples all squabbling with one another, the heart says, listen, you lot, shut it. I'm in charge now. You've all had a run for a year or two, but I'm going to decide what we're going to do. Peter, you're good with rocks. This is what I want you today. Go and build a wall over there. Matthew, you're good with numbers. So this is really, it's like an expansion of Howard Gardner's multiple intelligence model. He thought there were 8, but I'm saying that there's 12. What do you think about that?
I like it. It sounds perfect. It sounds wonderful. Now I have a question for you. We were talking earlier about the solar storms and the energies and the light coming through and how it's shifting us all. I guess I'm curious, have you had any new Spidey skills come on that you've had to been able to do certain things that you couldn't do before, or experience life in a different way? Because I'm interested to hear what's happened and changed with you.
Yeah, I think if you go searching for them, they're obstructed. I think if you just get out of the way, they start to emerge by themselves. So what's happening?
Right.
I'm so supremely sensitive now. What's happening to me now is I can smell a chemical from a mile off, right? And what tends to be is this, sometimes there's stuff going on in the atmosphere and I can pick it up because my nose starts to stream. If I go to the local supermarket, when I get any close to the chemical detergents and stuff, I can't go near it now because my nose pours with water or snot or whatever, right? And my throat closes over. So that's how I'm being guided now to know what's got stuff in it and what hasn't. Okay, so I've become very sensitive to that. The other thing is, and my friend, you know, like emails, well, my friend calls them T-mails. They're almost like telepathic emails now. And I'm almost like picking that up. And you know, from time to time when we were sensitive, and just every now and then, you just know someone was going to get in touch, right? And you think, I was just about to call you. Well, that's happening really, really quickly now. And like your friend said before, I see that exactly like that hall of mirrors, because each mirror, as you sow, so shall you reap. Each mirror is getting closer, so that we basically have to take the actions or gain the understandings to balance out things as well. So they're really coming in quite quickly. Some people might call that instant karma. So if you're onto the thing where you feel disturbed, it can only be an ego defense mechanism that's disturbed, because the divine part of us can't get disturbed because it's the boss, right? So any emotional disturbance, even any pain, is an obstruction to the free flow of this unconditional energy. And I call soul the source of unconditional love. That's my little thing for soul, right? And I think
I love that.
The soul's message is trying to come through, but the ego at some level is on the defensive. So there's a resistance there, which is felt as a discomfort. If you can only understand that it's a little message coming through for you about your own evolution, then, and that's where the mindfulness comes in. I don't know if go on, Jill, I'm sorry, but that's where mindfulness comes in. So rather than emotionally react, we can emotionally step back and not engage, open our heads up with the breathing and allow the space to come in so that we can see a much bigger picture. So there's the sense of smell. And the other thing as well is my sense of touch. Now, I know I was like this as a kid because I used to pick something up and drop it straight away. And my mum used to call that dropsy. Oh, you've got dropsy. But she, you know, when she was like having a bad time, she'd call me clumsy, you see. So I was very clumsy as a child because I was supremely sensitive. And I'm like I'm like a Reiki master now and all that sort of stuff. So that's coming through really, really strongly now as well.
So the hands-on healing is, I have the first level, so I'm not a master, but I've done the first level. Yeah, Reiki is very, very powerful. It's such a wonderful tool for people, definitely. Do you feel when you interact with people, like in groups, or like, you know, you go to the grocery store or you go to get a coffee or tea, do you feel more like you can feel and understand people's energies, like so much more like crisper, faster, like you can feel like where someone's at, like almost immediately? Because that's something that I've been kind of walking through, and I was wondering what you're feeling with that.
Yeah, same. And I mean, to be honest, I felt that a lot of my life, but I used to go and interfere in people's lives and try and give them instructions on how they should live. And I can see a lot of that was like disabling. And I didn't know that. It was almost like the savior complex thing. But I'm something called, you know, somebody else has called me this because a medical intuitive. So I can almost like see where obstructions are in people, you know, and get a sense of things really. And I'll just get, look, that they have to ask me first, or I make a suggestion, look, this is what I do, right? And I'm just getting a bit of a sense that I might be able to help you, get interested. If they say no, bugger off and leave me alone, I do, you know, I don't push it. But if they say, what do you mean? I'll say, just by the way that you're walking there, I can see that you maybe have some lower back problems. Well, where you're working on your back, it's not actually your back, it's your tummy that you need to look at. And they go, well, it's funny. When they say, it's funny you should say that, right? That's like a little indication of, you know, and I say, look, rightly or wrongly, I don't know, but just be a bit open to it. Maybe go home, sit down and ask your heart, what was that fella going on about, right? And that's how I sort of help people, because I can never give anything definitive, but sometimes I get really, really strong stuff. And sometimes because of the job that I'm in, because I do see a lot of clients and things like that, you know, but I can pick up in groups, the energy of groups, and generally speaking, Jill, when I share my story, people will quietly come up to me afterwards and says, "Thank you for being honest. But my husband's my husband's going through that at the moment. What can I do for him?" Right. And I said, "You basically can't do anything for him because he'll have to do it for himself. But if he wants to look at some of these YouTubes that I've got on my channel, that might be helpful for him, you see."
What do you, so just so our audience knows, in case people want to reach out to you and stuff, what kind of work do you do, and that kind of things? You know, I know you have a really long resume, so what is it right now that you're into?
Well, I can't do any one-to-one stuff. I'm too busy. I'm still associated with. I'm a lecturer in postgraduate medical education at the local university, so I'm doing that a lot. But the way that I try and help people, because I honestly haven't got time to like answer anybody's emails or stuff like that. So I'm not touting for business. But what I try and do is I do have a YouTube channel. I'll put it up in the link. It's just called Getting Real with Dr. Joe. It's called. And it's basically a mix. There's medical stuff on there, but there's also like crazy woo-woo type stuff on there if you're into that as well. Something else that's really emerging strongly in me is light language. You know, there's so many different dialects, so many different dialects of light language coming through me. And I used to be a bit, oh, I can't do this. What about my reputation? And I get, this is the way forward. Off you go, you know. And I had to get over myself, you know. But it just
Yeah,
comes.
that's really beautiful. Maybe at some point before we end this, you can definitely do some if you feel guided to. I had Martin McNichol on. I'm not sure if you're familiar with him. He's a wonderful guy, and he did some light language, and I'm just fascinated by the light language, and he I liked the way he explained it, but I kind of would like to hear your take on how it came to you and what you feel it means in the broader sense. You know, I'd like to hear your take on it.
Yeah, I think that it's associated with archaic languages that are basically recorrecting our DNA through tones. I don't think there's any specific, you know, to translate archaic Aramaic or Egyptian into English, right? That's not the way forward, really. This happens at a deeper level, but people generally speaking, what happens is as it comes out, that, you know, a lot of people think, what the hell? It's like gobbledygook, but they can sort of sense that something's happening. And that generally is like a vibrational thing. So it's part of your like of subtle energy and vibrational medicine, but it's through tones, not particularly the spoken word, right? And I got the one that comes.
So it's like it's code. It's basically like codes coming through for whatever you need in that moment that it comes through for you. You're giving it to whoever that is. There's something special, or, you know, a vibration that's coming through for that person that's not understood in regular words, but it's understood in vibration.
Yeah, and the one that comes through, I don't know whether you know Elsa Dillon. Have you ever heard of Elsa Dillon from Australia? But Elsa Dillon's what they call an experiencer, you know, and she can remember clear occasions when she was taken off planet, right, and worked upon off planet and stuff like that. And I have a sense of, I think that's what happened to me as a kid as well, but I don't know 100%, and it's not important actually. But you know, I work a lot with Elsa, right, and when I was talking to her, this really deep one came in. And she calls it rock now. It's the rock, you know. And so I'm like, Dr. Joe, rock star, you know what I mean? But it comes in. It's really, really deep bass tone, right? And it comes in, and it's associated apparently with dragon, really deep dragon energy and emperor dragon lines. Because what's actually happening, as the information's coming in from the sun, the solar impulses are actually impacted upon the ley lines of the planet Earth. That's what's happening. And because now there's things called the Emperor Dragon lines now are being reconnected because they've been misaligned over time, as you know, right? What's actually happening is now they're being shifted now. That's why there's a lot of stuff going on geomagnetically in the planet, because these powerful magnetic waves now are coming in and realigning. And what's happening is it's impacting upon our brain waves. The brain waves are impacted upon our nervous system. So what's happening is the solar impulses are coming in. They're impacted upon our chakras. The chakras are sending information through our meridian system. The meridian system then goes into small capillaries called the nadis, and they're changing all the cells and impacting upon the stem cells in our body. That's why everybody's physically changing now. So it's important to drink as much water as possible, keep your electrolytes in order, and just try and tune into your heart and be guided by what the heart's telling you to do. Now, some people might eat, they may get a real hungry feeling where they have to have 4 pork pies, right? And some people might have to say, no, give up meat because meat's not good for you. What I'm saying is, it's your intuition that will guide you as to every single thing. And so really, if somebody's really pushing something on you from the external, I would just be cautious about that, really, because what you need, not to deny it, but just to say, I'll take that information. Thank you for the information. Put it in your heart. And what I get is this, or I get this, you know, and it doesn't mean discard it, because you may need that information next week, you see. So it's really about dancing from one moment to the next.
Yeah, and for me, I personally, there's been weeks and days that I've been a lot more inward and not as outward. And for my particular story, it's benefited me greatly not to be as, even, you know, in my lives, not doing as many lives, not being as outward and around a lot of people. That's been helping my journey for my integration of the new, you know, the new light body. And the thing that people don't realize, and I'm sure you know, and many understand, is it's not like one thing, one time, one flash of light, and then you're shifted. It's a very progressive time, and and I believe it's really a progress of small baby steps to get you to that light body, because your body can't handle something like drastic. It needs small little steps for us to be able to integrate the new part of yourself, the new self. And we're emptying out so much of like the junk, and then we just have this space, and we have to get used to having this empty space that makes us lighter. And so we're not, you know, taken up with so many thoughts and baggage and worries and all the stuff that is like kind of stuck. We're getting rid of it, wouldn't you say?
I couldn't agree more. And the way I see it is like the solar impulses. It's like the sun is throwing out buckets of energy like that, you know. And some are X class, some are C class, some are M class and stuff. Just different size buckets, really. But each bucket is a cleansing thing, really. And I think what's actually happening is it's cleansing all these meridians and nadis, and it's making space in all these tubes for the soul to almost like infiltrate our physical body. And I think as the soul comes in, and this new light body comes in, I think it's pushing out all the crap, but we've got to express it. It's almost like got to come. So the soul's almost coming in from behind and pushing through, and it's almost kicking all the crap out, and we've got to express it, you know, and stuff like that. But, you know, if you, I mean, anger's coming up in a lot of people, frustration, you know, all these sorts of different things, even sensitivity, you know, you might go down the mall, right, and you might feel that everybody's coming at you, you know, you're the only person walking against the crowd and stuff, you know, and you can be like, yeah, full of like paranoia and stuff. That's a positive thing, believe it or not, because it's an expansion of your sensory system, really. Anyway, I digress. I think, so it's this soul coming in. It's almost like recoding our DNA on a sort of individual basis, where a neutralization has to take place. And that's why we get this sort of, I've got no idea what's going on, because we need some relaxation, because it's in the relaxation that recovery comes in, neutralization comes in, and recuperation. So we don't need to be driven on. We just need to take a step back and sit down and just be with the process, really.
Yeah, and that and like I said, with my inner journey, it's just taking time to myself, because I think by yourself and like out in nature and like grounding and things really helps you get back and sort of be able to recalibrate.
I agree. And you asked me about, you know, mechanisms and techniques. I was out this morning, I was swimming in the river, did about 1.5 miles because I love swimming, you know. And so in that process, I mean, I do breaststroke mostly, but in the out breath or the push out, I'm just breathing out and almost imagining that any gunge that's sort of built up is coming out with my breath. I do a lot of running as well, and when I'm running, it's like 1, 2, you know, and I'm sort of getting that out all the time. And this dragon
Okay.
thing, it's gonna come in a minute because I can feel it coming in, right? This dragon thing
Oh.
is really all about allowing the throat its full expression. And I see my throat like a flute with 7 holes in representing the chakras. I see that in order to fully cleanse them, you've got to express it. And so my heart opens, the energy comes up from my heart, and it plays a tune on my throat, really. And I think
I love that.
just before I do it, I have to clear my throat and then see what comes in then, really.
So what can you tell us about the dragon energy in the sense of, you know, there's a lot of talk about this dragon energy, and does it come from actual dragons? Like, what is that all? You know, I hear so much talk about that, and I've heard so many different ideas on that. What is your take on that?
Well, I see a dragon that's associated with me, and it's a big black dragon. It looks like the devil itself, right, in me. And when it first came in, it's got red eyes, right, and it's got
Oh,
red
wow.
claws as well. And when I got that, because I need to share with people when these things come in, because I thought it was like, what the hell's going on here? And I got, Joe, this is the protection. Don't you remember this from when you were 7 years of age? And Jill, I did. I used to have dreams every night that I was tumbling down the stairs and this great big beast was waiting for me at the bottom of the stairs. And now it's always been there for my, see, it's here now. I can feel it now. And I don't understand this. I just tell people, this is what's going on with me. Some people say, I think you should be going back to the psychiatric department, but I laugh at them now. You know what I mean?
So you feel it right behind you right now.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
feel that
What happens?
dragon
It comes
energy.
in. It's almost like Batman, you know, that type of thing. But it's got such a power. And what I've got is it's got like a big tail. And when it flicks its tail, it's clearing space for me to go forward. And if anybody wants to come close, who like wants to cause trouble, right, it just goes. And it's almost like a cow swatting flies off its bottom. You know what I mean? It just goes like that. And that's why I know, Jill, I'm being protected at the deepest level possible now. And that's why I feel most of the time protected. Right.
Wow. And so so you've always had a connection to it, but now you have a deeper connection where you can actually feel when it comes out and when it's right around you, that energy.
Yeah, yeah. And it starts at my perineum, which is the bottom of my spine, and it's associated with the root and the sacral chakras. It's those first 2 chakras, right? Because there's a lot of cleaning that's going on in those 2 chakras. The root chakra is associated with the kidneys, and it's to do with fight and flight. And the second chakra is associated with sex and intimacy, and people get those things mixed up. So there's a lot of stuff coming up regarding intimate relationships and to understand the difference between biological sex and gender. One's male and female, male or female, and the other one is masculine and feminine. When people can start understanding the difference between those, a lot of things on the planet will start to get sorted out, really. You know, I don't know why I've come out
Yeah,
with all that, really.
a lot of people doing work on twin flames and divine masculine and feminine, like Todd and Morgan are doing, do a lot of stuff with that, and also with the dragon energies. So there's so much of that happening. And yeah, I've got intel myself that we're working on those 2 chakras right now, like as a collective consciousness.
Yeah,
Where
and it's the
we're
sort
in
of
that sort of stage.
sorry, it's to be objective about it as well, because if you allow the energy to come up and it misses out on a transforming heart, it will go into your head and drive you mad, right? So it's a bit like it comes from the bottom into your head, right? And then it drives you insane. So it's got to come up. It's got to come up through the solar plexus into the heart. That's the crucible of transformation. And then the information comes up to the head then, and it becomes more understandable, really. So the heart is really like a softener or the governor. The heart is the governor of this energy.
Right.
But
So
you know,
once it comes through the heart, yeah, it sort of transmutes that sharpness. It kind of like softens that sharpness of the brain. The brain that's very judging and very wrong and right, and no tolerance, no compassion, no grace. The heart actually puts the grace into whatever that experience is and allows you to see it for the fullness of it, not the minimalistic, part of it, the small part, but the large part, the grand
Perfect.
part.
Perfect. And it's also about, the way I see it, it's about that energy, which is anger, is very destructive, but it's power. There's nothing wrong with it other than it's misinterpreting things, really. So it's power. So if it comes through the heart, it becomes re-empowerment and becomes focus then. And then we can sort of bat away any distractions, and we can be focused like the unicorn's horn. We can be focused on the soul's purpose. And that's what that's what I feel that we need to learn. If we're going to be, and we are, whether we like it or not, we are leaders in this field because we've been just a little ahead. It's not that with any, this is our job, is really to help
Right.
people to understand that this is about focusing on their particular skill set, their soul skill set, and not to be distracted by Prime Video, Netflix. Oh, nothing wrong with having a break. But when you're sitting there and you're listening to 6 hours of stuff, then you're probably being distracted away from what you really came here to do. And that's basically to help save the planet.
Yeah, your divine purpose. Your divine purpose is your joy. It's what lights you up. It makes you feel passion. It makes you feel balanced. It makes you feel happy and joy, like you were talking about joy. That's one of the things I love about watching you and watching all your stuff, is you always have such a joy about your expression, your words, the way that you transform stories. There's always joy in that, and that's it's so much more digestible and exciting to feel that in people's words than just knowledge or information, because those kind of things don't have the spark that uplifts and carries the message. So you have that spark within your joy that's so powerful. Like I said, I've been watching you for years. I connected with some of your work through Todd Medina, through his stuff, and now I know you have a show on his network, right?
Yeah. It's just it's in the incubator at the moment, but hopefully that'll re-emerge soon. But as I say, on my YouTube channel, there's all sorts of different things there, and I'm putting new stuff up all the time. Because that's the way I can help people. Really, it's just rather than doing one-to-one or anything like that, if I just put new shows up when I can do them when I've got time.
Yeah, and you'd probably do it when you just feel, when something feels very important or guided. Then you try to connect with something. Are you doing stuff just by yourself? Are you doing stuff with like interviews? Are you interviewing people, or what's on your show?
Yeah, both of those things. In fact, the stuff I've got with Solargy, a lot of that is on the YouTube channel. So there's something called the I Am approach. There's various lessons or lectures on there. So 1 hour lecture on how I see things, but it's only my small view. Look at it, see if you see it in a different way, put some comments on it. But I am working with somebody from Oslo in Norway, right? Christine Van Besset, and we do light language on there. That's called the I can't remember what it's called, the language of love and light or something like that, And so we're basically sharing our understandings, right? I'm doing some light language towards the end there, And I met Kristen when I came over to the Solargy Festival in Houston, right? And we both met.
I saw you on there. That was a good that was a good festival, and a lot of it was broadcast, and I watched you and Todd a couple times on there.
Right. Well, I met Kristen and we both said at the same time, you and me have got to do something together, and we did a light language thing live for the first time together. And I just burst into tears. Right. I couldn't help myself. There was like a big, deep thing happened to me. It was so powerful. And that's why you never know what's coming up next, So that's something, if your viewers want to have a look at that, it's on this I Am Getting Real with Dr. Joe YouTube. Other than that, just a normal day, really.
Nothing's normal with you, Joe. You got so much magic going on. It's incredible. Yeah. Well, I'm not sure. We could be on for a few more minutes, but I definitely want you to do some light language.
Okay, I'll just tune in and see who's with us.
Okay.
Meer zocht een arret zo dit meer romel uit horm. Kasap nie geroog de Ismael, dat is hoed nie erg som te krachtig. Run nie erg som te krachtig. Er kom die alo som te uru te gemahze. Er oor antkas mior tush echem oor dash. Nie ek soch nerat uts, maar groene urusen terachet. Haram nerat tush me altig. Kafsjerem lasan torem ech moer at ugumata. Mevrouw, hoe je kunt stappen, hoe je half je stappen, hoe je knallen tot maar, hoe je zetten we maar poda, hoe je tot lekker tot nou, hallo. Ik zag niet roetig, er is something grammar schender bij tegen, voor een roerim desem end. Zag no urdash ik hem oren aan zatneed. Bara something gram hotoshin te tats, moordash neer douche en een something granai. Door het nek, voor het ne etzek ne huur, pas acht na hij.
Wow, that was wonderful. That one deep one, that really, like, there was something in that. Like, I don't know, I felt like it was connected to the dragon. Like, that was really intense.
That's him.
I felt it. That was really, really intense.
And what Elsa said was, she's called that before maketh man. So she's associated with before the human and really associated with the rocks and basically the mineral composition of Mother Earth as well, out of what everything emerged from. You know, to be honest with you, Jill, I don't fully understand it. I just go with it. You know, some people hear that and it scares the daylight out of them, but some people hear it and they feel like a low vibration, just shaking up stuff that needs to float to the surface as well. Now, it's possible on this recording that it mightn't pick up that low thing. It can pick it up live, but on the recording, sometimes it blocks the low one out, you know. But that's where I'm up to, you know, and at first, and because I'm a good Roman Catholic lad, or used to be, I thought I was being possessed by demons, you know what I mean? But I realized today that it's actually a power and a strength that's there to help me to go forward, but also it's keeping an eye on me as well, really.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. Like, it's amazing. I've only done light language maybe a couple times in the shower. And it was so funny because when I was talking to Martin, he's like, yeah, Jill, you've done it in the shower. And I'm like, how did you know that? It's like, I don't know.
You may find that more stuff's coming through as well.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's like you said, you have to get out of your own way because there's a certain amount of like resistance that you have, like you said, like, oh, this is crazy, or oh, this what you know, people are gonna think I'm, you know, it's like you have to get out of the way of that. And I feel like there's part of me that maybe is, and there's part of me that's not, like a subconscious part of me that's like stopping me or something. And so I'm continuously opening and opening, and I feel like the more people that I'm, you know, around that do that, and I get it, the more comfortable it's going to be for me to step into that realm, because it's natural. It comes through when it wants to. It's just like channeling. You can't tell it. It's, you know.
Yeah, we're not in charge.
How long
I
have
mean,
you been doing that?
Oh, I've been doing it for years, but I haven't been public with it for a while. I mean, probably, I think my first time was about 3 years ago live. But I've done it a lot. When I used to be working, I'd be walking down the stairs with my friend, and it would all come out, and it would be reverberating all around the university and stuff like this, you know. Yeah. So I don't, Jill, I've got no idea what's going on, but it feels like the correct thing, really. But when I look back,
And you don't get any, nobody's giving you any slack at the university. Nobody's giving you any pushback or anything. People
no,
are
no,
pretty accepting of it.
Yeah, they just think I'm like a nutter now. That's all, really, and that's fine because they don't like me being so light-hearted, because universities, especially medical universities, are supposed to be responsible and serious. Nah, no, it's
How did
not.
you,
Not.
that's a good question. Let me ask you, how have you gotten around the stiffness of that Western medicine mentality? How have you brought your lightness into that stiffness? Like what's transpired with that? That's an interesting question.
What I tend to do is I bring it in under the guise of stress, because they're all stressed to hell. They're all going off ill with stress, anxiety, and depression. They're all drinking more. They're all taking cocaine and drugs and all. These are the medical professionals, right? And so I talk about lightheartedness, and I say, not stupidity. Lightheartedness means, and this is what you do. So I show them the technique. I show them some biofeedback on a biofeedback monitor. And I say, this is how you can regulate the way that your hemispheres are working through this breathing technique. And what I love about spiritists, they're so clever that they've got these medics practicing this, and then their intuition kicks in automatically, and they start saying things, maybe we need to change these things. And also other things I've done as well is I do Tai Chi as well now, and Qigong, Tai Chi and Qigong. And again, breathing in, breathing out, and moving hands in clouds. And I'm trying to explain to them how to bring in emotion. So when they can understand the movement and the breathing, but they can't understand the connection with the emotion. And so I say to them, imagine now that you can feel a mist as you draw your hands through the clouds, and it changes things. So that's called waving hands in clouds, with movement and breathing, and also feeling as well. Once more with feeling.
Yes, yes. Yeah. Tai Chi is beautiful. I don't know a ton about it, but I did practice it for a while, for a couple of years, and I got away from it. I did Falun Gong. So I'm not sure if you're familiar with that.
Very much so.
Yeah, I did that every morning for at least 30 minutes, sometimes an hour if I had enough time to do it. And I loved the way it made me feel. I felt more healthy when I did that than any other time. Even when I did like my speed walking and the other things that I do, it made me feel so much more in balance, like just the balance that it puts in all of your energy levels, like all of your chakras. It's just amazing.
I would suggest to all your viewers, go and have a look at Falun Gong as well on the internet, right?
Yeah.
Because that to me is the highest and the most precise form of Tai Chi, right? Because not only does it deal with the inner workings, if you like, the inner alchemy, but it also resets your posture as well. Because there's one there that you hold up like that, got your fingers
Yep.
pointing in your ears, right? And it's directly, and then the instructor will come along and he'll just reset it exactly. And what that does is it actually realigns your shoulders and opens your heart to its full potential. So it's working on the physical structure as well. And when they do that one, that clear it out one, that's like the yin and the yang channels as well, to try and open up this middle channel. I know you know this,
Yep.
but when I
Yes.
was doing it, I could see. And so postural alignment, right? Physical postural alignment is brilliant because it can take you back to yin yoga, hatha yoga, and ashtanga, all these different yogas, right?
Yin,
Because I honestly feel,
my girlfriend teaches yin yoga, and that's one of my favorite yogas.
yeah, because it works with the natural forces of the universe. And if you just work it out, gravity is such a powerful force that if our head's just slightly out of alignment, all the force of gravity is weighing down on us, and it's causing our body to be misaligned. Jill, honest to God, there's so many different things that I'm learning all the time, and I only ever feel like I'm scratching the surface of this stuff. Here's something that I found important as well, is that it's got to be done, the release, if you like, and the cleansing's got to be done in the correct sequence. How do I know what the correct sequence is? I have to ask my innate intelligence, what do you want me to work on today? Now, my head may be saying, you need to go for a run, but my innate intelligence may be saying, you don't need to do anything today other than stretch. So I've got to trust what this is telling me and following its because this is me really at the deeper level, to follow the guidance that it's given me. Because what happens is we disentangle sequentially going backwards.
That's really, yes, that is so true. That is so, so true. And the more inner that you get, the more that you're listening to the inside of what you're being told, it's muscle memory. It becomes just normal existence for you. The more you get tapped in to just listening and like, and also I feel like that's also something that I have noticed is when I recognize the signs and the codes and like the communications with the animals and the trees, and they all communicate with me and they give me messages. And they I had an experience, I think I spoke on one of my other podcasts about how I was driving to work one day, and we have a lot of bald eagles that live next to the lake that I'm on. And the bald eagles are like, it's one of my spirit totems, one of my spirit animals. And I see them really, really frequently. And so I would see them on the right-hand side of the road, but this particular day I saw them on the right-hand side of the road, and then I saw them on the left, which is not normally the thing. So in my mind, I thought it immediately was like, oh, I am being reminded that everything's coming into balance. The universe is coming into balance. And so that was my message. But then when I got to work, we had an earthquake. It was small, but I actually felt it and it pushed me off my chair. And so the eagles were telling me, hold your balance. You're going to feel things and understand the world is shifting and you got to have your balance. And then I realized that's where the message was. So it wasn't an instantaneous understanding, but I listened to the cues, and then I was able to put it all together eventually. But like the better you get, the more instantaneous it is, and the more full, the more your heart is completely open without the distractions and the distortions, right?
Yeah, I work exactly the same way, almost like one breath at a time. But because I was out there and my head was about a mile ahead of my body, I could never feel all this stuff. And so it's really about sort of getting put back together. And that's what it is to me. It's about alignment of all the various subtle bodies and things like that. I agree.
Yeah,
I mean,
and outward becomes you get really, really in tune with the outward and the inward. So it's all simultaneous. So the outward is speaking from your inward, but you can understand that simultaneousness once you get accustomed to like recognizing the language. It's like learning another language. It's like the language of your heart and the language of all that is, both the inner and the outward, and sort of understanding how that all intertwines.
that's it. What do they call that? Entanglement.
Entanglement.
Yeah,
Boy,
but
quantum physics is really coming a
yeah,
long way, isn't it? From what
it
we
is.
first thought it was to what we understand it to be today.
Oh, absolutely. So I call it quantum disentanglement. Right.
Ah, okay. So
Yeah.
you're taking it
But
apart to put it back together to understand it.
exactly. Exactly. So there we are.
That's
That's what I'm up
powerful.
to. I'm enjoying it. I'm not always like happy and happy-go-lucky, because when big challenges come in, sometimes I have to take some time to sit down and try and keep open and just ask. But the thing about the eagles and stuff, I have like two guides, two Native American Indian guides, right? One's an old fella, right, a chief type person, and one's a young brave, right? And when I'm running, I ask for the young brave to help me out. This is what I do. Now, I could be going back to the psychiatric, but I don't think so, because I'm happy doing this. So I asked the young one to give me some strength and power and stuff, and I can feel it flow in sometimes. But when the old one's with me, I feel exhausted. I have to sit down, and that's when I have to sit in like my meditation chair, because I almost even, when I look in my mirror, I almost even go all wrinkly and everything, almost as if it overshadows my face, yeah, and stuff like that. So they're the sort of things. Just to go back to the 12, I honestly believe there's a different frequency and a different tone for each of the spheres. I think there's a different guide, which will be individual for individual people. So it's the getting to know the guides that are associated with those different dimensions. I don't believe in higher and lower, right? Because I see everything as a sphere. I think some people may
Right,
need to
right,
come in and they may need to do sphere 3. And when they do that one,
yeah,
everything else falls into place. Some people might have 2 spheres to do or 3. So we all have different sort of codes that we come in with, right? That we've
right,
got to
right.
deal with, and that's why, even it's a bit linear really to talk about higher and lower. So I talk
True,
about
true.
almost like global coordinates now. And I think that the coordinates, not only do they have a sort of a vector where they've got a line going to somewhere, but there's also space-time coordinates as well, whereby at certain stages of it, you can go back in different time dimensions. There's so much that's coming to me.
Right.
Don't fully understand it, but I sort of do. And I'm just waiting now to ask the thing that's guiding me. Okay, how do I put that across then in order to help people to get in touch with their own guidance? So that's my job really
Right.
is to guide
Bringing
them
people
back to
back
their
to
own
themselves.
guidance.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
bring them back. Do you feel that you're so do you feel that you have the ability in these days to be able to sort of quantum jump into your different selves now? Because that's something I felt like I've been able to tap into for quite some time, where I can jump into those different selves when they're needed to help someone or assist someone. So I'll suddenly have a knowledge or understanding of something that I really didn't have any way to know, but because I've obviously lived that life and that understanding, that expression, I can go into that. And like you said, it's circular. Sometimes my language still is linear, and I don't even realize that when I'm saying the higher and low and all that, it's so true. It's not like that. It's round. It's circular.
Yeah. No, we're on the same page and we're going through the same process. And I think more and more people are now. But if they're hanging on at an unconscious level and their head's battered and they're disturbed, it's to try and help them to understand that everybody's going through this powerful process and to basically let go. My biggest message will be just work within the day. And if a day's too much, cut it down to half a day. Don't go out of the day. Just stay in the present day and the present moment and the present breath and just try and sink deeper rather than going up into your head. Try and let your head go metaphorically. Take your head, throw it away, and start working from feelings first. You know.
Yes,
So
that
that
whole
that
day by day thing, that's so powerful, because I think especially right now, it's because of the quickening and how fast everything's happening and how much is seems to be coming at us, which it's not, it's just our own stuff. But I feel like if we do take it moment by moment and day by day, I do believe, like you said, it's so much easier to process through than worrying about a week or many weeks down the road. It's too much at this point, I feel.
I don't think anyone can predict anything anymore, even tomorrow. Who the hell knows what's going on
Yeah.
tomorrow? The whole place might have blown up. The whole place might have blown up
What is
tomorrow the
your
way things are going.
what is your take? I've heard so many different takes on this, and I'm wondering what your idea and your feeling is about this, like this solar flash and all these lights that are supposed to come through. And obviously we know that the solar flashes, that's all legit, like that's happening. But what about like this big grand flash? What is your opinion on that? Because I've heard so many different people's opinions on that, and I'm just really,
My feeling
wondering.
is no. I don't know the answer. I might be wrong, but I don't feel it works like that. I think in some people, it's an individual thing, really. And as the energies come in, some people might have a massive spiritual awakening, which would be like a big flash. But I think it's more about an educational variety where information pops up a day at a time and we get more information. If we can take it on board, it consolidates what we already know. And then the next day brings a new possibly challenge, a new bit of information. It's like it's an exciting journey if you want to look at it like that. Or you can see it's like hell every day. You have a choice which side you want to look at this really. And I see it as an interesting challenge. And some days it's like hell, because I have those as well. But I know now that this is my big thing is, Jill, if I don't take a drink of alcohol one day at a time, I'm always winning. That's where I'm up to.
That's great. That's powerful. It's that story of alcohol has touched so many people's lives, and it's been a great lesson for so many people. And it's brought people, because Martin had a similar story with his, I don't know if you've ever spoken to him, but he's
Yeah,
had
yeah.
a,
I know him quite
and
well.
his story,
He's a scoundrel. He is. He's a scoundrel.
he loves using that word. He calls himself that. It's
A
so cute.
scallywag. I call him. He's a scallywag and a scoundrel. And
I love
then he
him.
says, takes one to know one, he says.
I want to have him on again. It's just hard because of the time differences and stuff. He's more available during the day, and that's when I'm actually working. But I'm gonna get him back on again. I had a good chat with him, a good podcast with him. You'll have to check it out whenever you get a chance. I know you're
Will do.
busy, but I'd love to collaborate with you again, Joe.
Yeah, give us a chance. I'll sit down, call in the information gatherers and say, you can come on my show then, and we'll see what emerges
Oh,
then.
yeah,
It's
I'd
okay.
love to.
So leave it with me, and I'll get back to you in the fullness of time, and we'll have another one of these because I've enjoyed every moment of it.
Oh, so have I. Thank you so much for your wisdom, your authenticity, your words, your time, all of it, Joe. You're such a blessing to the planet. I'm just so grateful for you.
Thanks very much, Jill. Ditto.
All right. Well, you have yourself a wonderful day, and
Will do.
we will connect very soon. I'll reach out to you.
Okay. Bye bye. Thanks very much. And thanks everybody for
Bye.
watching. Bye.
Yeah, thank you.